Originally, the idea for the movie was a mini black hole sort of enters the Earth's orbit. And Greg came on, and I think he, being a director and thinking visually, felt that a black hole was not that visually, it's like, how do you show a black hole? A black hole is the absence of everything. A black hole is black, it's nothingness. But the aurora borealis does affect ham radio signals. It has to do with radiation getting spit out of the sun. It kicks off these solar flares, they shoot out into space, they head towards Earth, they react with our atmosphere.
We actually did a lot of research into what makes the aurora. So the auroras that we have in the film are, I like to think, scientifically accurate. We know that aurora is created from energy streaming in from the sun, going through magnetic field lines into the Earth, and we tried to stay true to that as much as possible.
The solar corona is the outer atmosphere of the sun. It's many times larger than the sun itself. You can see it during an eclipse or with special equipment here on Earth. The two central mysteries of the corona are, one, why is it so hot? It's about 1,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun, and we've been trying for decades to explain that. And two, how do the outer layers of the corona get accelerated to form the solar wind that streams throughout the solar system?
The solar wind is a high-speed flow of electrically charged gas coming from the surface of the sun at about 1,000,000 miles an hour. The solar wind affects and changes the shape of the Earth's magnetic field and the geospace environment. For almost 30 years now, scientists have measured high-speed wind coming from the sun and believe that it comes from open magnetic field regions called coronal holes. However, it's only been recently, with new observations from the SOHO spacecraft, or Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, have we actually been able to make detailed two-dimensional observations of this source region and of this structure, and find that it's coming from or linked to this honeycomb-shaped pattern or network structure of the magnetic field on the surface of the sun.
When we look at a Yoko image, an image in soft X-rays, or X-rays emitted by about 1,000,000-degree plasma, there are unique structures called sigmoids. These sigmoids are S-shaped structures, so they're pretty easy to spot. These structures are much more likely to erupt than regions that don't have an S shape. Many active regions just have a very simple shape, just connecting one region on the sun's surface to another, no twist in them at all. On the other hand, these sigmoid structures are very twisted. The twist that's in them is a clue that they've got some excess energy stored in them. It's kind of like a spring. You can imagine that if you took a springy piece of metal and you twisted it up, you'd have to work to get it all twisted. And when you let it go, it would spring open.
When this billion-ton cloud of plasma slams into the Earth, some of the charged particles flow into the polar regions along invisible lines of magnetic force. The Earth's field is shaped very much like a bar magnet. And when these particles impact the atmosphere, we call them the northern and southern lights.
This plasma then spirals into funnel-like areas of the magnetosphere called polar cusps. And as the rest of the magnetosphere stretches and snaps, it accelerates plasma already trapped by the Earth. As these charged particles rain into the ionosphere and upper atmosphere above the poles, they release tremendous amounts of energy as they react with the gases in the Earth's atmosphere. This chemical reaction creates a spectacular light show known as the Northern Lights, or the aurora borealis.
And we're moving now from the period where we had a minimum in the solar cycle up toward a maximum. And as we move up toward this maximum, we expect to see more CMEs coming off the sun, and we expect to have more of these S-shaped structures that will be on the sun.
As the sun becomes more active, these explosions become much more common. Most of the time, the Earth is not in the way of these clouds as they come out from the sun. But sometimes the Earth does get in the way.
Drastic changes in the shape of the Earth's magnetic field can damage satellites or disrupt communication.
In addition to all the systems on Earth, like pagers and wireless telephones and TV satellites that are affected by space weather, astronauts and people in high-altitude aircraft are also affected by the particle radiation from solar storms. If we have a week's extra warning, that can certainly help us with planning such trips by astronauts or extravehicular activities much better than we can now and much more safely.
There is some kind of relationship to solar storms, the aurora borealis, and ham radio.
CQ-22, QYV bifocal. Because of the solar activity. Yeah, it's beautiful. We've got the sky over my house lit up like a bonfire. Word is the sunspots are shooting off flares that stretch out 500 kilometers. What said of it will be. Tell me about it. I'm picking up signals from places I could never reach.
It's visually very stunning. It happens in 11-year cycles. It messes with ham radios, and so we kind of embraced it.
W2QYV here. Who have I got?
I have occasionally run across unlicensed radio operators. I'm not necessarily going to brush them off because they may have a sincere desire to learn more about ham radio, and they could be a future licensed ham radio operator once they gain more knowledge about what we're doing.
There she is.
So this is what people used before the net, huh?
Well, not exactly, I'll tell you. Hams were, bingo. These babies were different. Not everybody had one of these.
Ham radio operators were doing worldwide communications long before the internet existed.
This is what we used when I was your age.
When I was a kid, my younger brother Noah, who's in the movie, got a CB radio, and we used to love talking on him. You know, 10-4, and he had handles, you know, big red and little red. So that was where the idea came from. I sort of loved my CB radio as a kid. And there was a sort of fad in the 70s when everybody had them in cars, and it was the cool thing to have. I couldn't imagine a fireman coming home and being excited about a CB radio, so I kind of juiced it up to a ham radio.
Amateur radios work simply by the boxes that are used today. The original amateur radio was a receiver. It was ability to pick up a small radio signal from the air.
Can you hear me?
And a transmitter, which was a device that put radio waves into the air.
A radio is
Radio amateurs all over the world collect what is called QSL cards. These are cards that we send verifying the fact that we have contacted each other in various places of the world. Without the atmospheric storms on the sun, many of these contacts would indeed not be made.
A lot of hams work at aerospace industry, and they have the ability and the knowledge to design and build these satellites. Some of them are only 12 inches in a cube size.
Ignition and liftoff. Good. Guidance is controlling very well. Passing through Mach 1 at max Q.
The satellites have gotten that trip into orbit because in some cases they need ballast on board the rocket to balance out the payload. And so these small satellites, crammed full of high-tech equipment, they're essentially getting a free trip into space. And hopefully they'll have a number of years of a serviceable life.
Radio really got its start in 1886 when Heinrich Hertz was curious about the fact that electrical energy seemed to go off into space. He would observe small amounts of corona, that is a small lightning discharge from high voltage generators, such as what you see here.
Radio signals went into a black hole. Now, of course, they would never come out of a black hole, because once they enter what's called the singularity, where time and space and everything just sort of boils down to one dimension, is sort of my understanding of it, nothing ever escapes that. But what if it did? What if radio signals bounced in and out of this black hole, so signals from the future would come to the past, and signals from the past would bounce into the future?
The notion of a wormhole arises in general relativity as a kind of connection or tube in the geometry of space-time connecting two different regions. Professor Kip Thorne wrote some papers where he stated very clearly what would be required in order to have closed time like hers in general relativity. He was not saying that these conditions were likely to be.
I have rules, and rules are important. The audience has to believe in the rules, but I did bend them. One of the rules is that the worlds are in parallel. So if it's October 11th, 3 p.m. in 69, it's October 11th, 3 p.m. in 99, and we're kind of moving in sync. So when Frank survives the fire, John now remembers him being alive.
John Sullivan?
Yeah, it's me.
You're the voice of an angel. You reach right out of heaven and you pull my butt out of the frying pan.
Tell me I'm not dreaming here. Tell me it's really you.
It's me, John. This ain't no dream. Essentially, at the bottom line, this movie is about playing God with your own destiny, because you get to go back and you change things and you find out how it would have been.
I suspect that if we understood it better, we could give more profound answers as to what time really is. But I think that's still to come.
Firefighting is extremely simple. We teach it to school children all the time. We call it the triangle of fire. The fire needs three things to burn: fuel, heat, and oxygen. But if you eliminate any one of those triangles, heat, oxygen, or
all these things that go through your mind as you're going in, because number one, you want to come out because you want to go home to your family or your loved ones the next day.
The great backbone of the fire service are the wives of firefighters. I know for me that when I kiss my wife goodbye in the morning, I realize the thought is in my mind that this might be the last time I ever see her. I don't think the wives really, truly allow themselves to think about, you know, are we the last time we're going to be together? Some might, but others try to symbolize their love for their husbands by wearing pendants of their badges, or sometimes a Maltese cross around their neck that would have their husband's name on it, or badge number. Certainly we wear these badges, we work hard for the particular ranks that we have, and a wife of a firefighter plays an important role. So a lot of times firefighters will bestow upon their wives a gift of their badge or a symbol of their firefighting family. In 1969, a lot has changed in modern days as we've entered the new millennium. One of those being communication.
Clear the channel. Explosion's imminent. You hear me?
I hear you, Commander.
The gasoline is rising in the fog.
Each firefighter for us in Los Angeles has their own personal radio. We have a personal alarm device that we wear in case we get lost inside of a structure. But when push comes to shove and it's a worst case scenario, we have alarms and warnings that we can show other firefighters that we're in trouble.
There's been many cases where a fireman's been on a second and have a certain ability to follow their instincts. It's something that they need to learn to rely on, and I think they get that from experience. They get it from learning from other firefighters who have more experience than they do by listening and by drilling.
B93, response to Manhattan Box 132, off-ramp of the George Washington Bridge.
All the firemen are assigned a specific area, whether it be inside man, top man, tiller man, nozzle, or hydrant. Tillerman's position on the truck when you go to a structure fire is one utility. Somebody has to be in charge of disconnecting power lines. If there's a water problem, shutting off the water to the building. There have been cases where firemen have been electrocuted from power sources that not being shut off.
Frank, a second in. We got the rescue, okay?
Inside position is also on the truck, and their job is to go inside of the building, search and rescue, also forcible entry.
I'm primarily responsible for raising the big ladder. It's 100.
Get out for Christ's sake! I got you.
These guys are pretty good about drawing that line between what's right and what's wrong. The only time when we will step over the line is to save somebody else, whether it be a civilian or a fellow firefighter.
Going up! Go! Right behind you! Go! Pull him out! Come on! I got you.
On frequency, you want a visual effect for that. Whenever we start on a project like this, we do a lot of research. We go and look through reams of material to find little things that would be great to include in our Aurora Borealis for the movie. We went and found a lot of video reference of actual Aurora Borealis that was taken from University of Alaska. There was a story, someone walked into the room, saw the aurora, and asked him where he'd gotten the photography for the Aurora Borealis, because he said he used to live in Alaska and it was a perfect ringer for what he'd seen. So that was probably the best compliment that we could receive for something like that. We started just sitting down and talking with Greg Hoblit, and in that time frame we sit down and do a lot of storyboarding, we make some concept art. So you kind of have to do a lot of exploring at that time and just constantly going back and forth and talking and feeling out what feels right for the kind of movie that we're going for. There was some great work done by Jim Barrett, which had this sort of energy from the sun flying out and spilling across this almost glass-like surface that separated the real Earth from a ghost-like image that was supposed to represent the other time zone. In order to put any effect in a shot, you have to take your virtual camera in the computer and match it up to what was actually done. So we have match movers who sit, and we took measurements of certain key features in the scene so that they could go back and create the same thing. After that, the next thing is to start placing the aurora in the sky with what we call the choreography stage. And all that really entails is placing the aurora, putting some basic motion and getting the timing and the feel down. As soon as we're done with that, we'd show it to Greg and have him agree that that's where he wants it to be. From there, we start layering the textures on, and we have several layers that make up the aurora. There's just straight textures that are placed on these moving ribbons in space, and then there's particle systems that kind of add little extra wisps of aurora energy. We sat down at the time we were filming the plate and discussed where you might want to see the aurora. A great example was the finale for the entire aurora effect at the very end, where it kind of...
You all right?
We have different types of people on the show. We had people who were lighters who, for the hand shot morphing away, will paint all the little textures and make it look like a real hand. There are animators who'll go and actually animate the hand disappearing. And finally, there's the compositors who take all the elements and assemble it with the background plate to make the finished shot. I really liked the range of effects. You had the natural Aurora Borealis and the sun and those things. The most challenging shots were the sun opening shot and the Aurora Borealis, especially the fly-through that we go up and see the Earth from space. No one's ever put a camera by the sun to know what it looks like when we're going to actually portray it. So there's a lot of liberty there with where you can go. But nonetheless, we all kind of have some sort of innate understanding of what the sun's supposed to look like. So we had to look and find the reference to know what the public is used to seeing and what would really read well as the sun to incorporate in our effects. I think we all were very happy with the results and achieved what we were trying to get. The original plan was a little simpler than what we finally ended up achieving, so there was a lot of extra work that was great to see come together at the end. And it was also satisfying just working on such a great movie.